Yeah, I'll take a look through the Galaxy Neck. I think for today, honestly, I didn't chart Sunday and I wasn't really active today either, so I may go through and look at as many tickers as I can until I get tired, basically. But I do have a few like a list of requested ones, so I'll go through those as well. Yeah, no, probably that'll be the flow for today. So in that case, honestly, I might just start ripping through these. And then y'all can, anything y'all put in the chat, I'll just write down and either go over it in order, or at the end I'll just get to all the ones that are written down. And I want to do a bit of better job of, as I go through, building a watch list. Let me see here. Yeah, building a watch list, showing how I would set alerts and stuff like that, just so in case anyone's newer, it gives more of an example of, I guess, how you should, or I guess how I would approach it, and hopefully that helps some of y'all out. So, okay, yeah, we can get started. So yeah, Tesla today, I think just opened at 442 and then just basically ran out the gate. So from this lower node up to 450. If this 450 holds, let me check facts actually. Yeah, if we hold this 450, it looks like this 467 has pretty good pull. So I'm be looking up here. Wait, let me make sure I'm sharing. Wait, y'all can see my screen, right? Okay. But yeah, in any case, yeah, this 450 holds pretty strong, and we keep this Vex node, and we see maybe perhaps this Gex node up here grow a bit. I think Tesla can expect some upside. The only caution here, I would say, is this 460 might step in as a ceiling. So has some pretty strong volume on Gex, and then even on Vex, we're looking at like 20K, so that 460 might not stunt it, but I guess we can put 460 as gatekeeper. So just be aware if this node grows at all, that that 460 could sort of limit the upside that we're seeing on Tesla. Nvidia sort of flagged today, so I think they dropped a bit, I guess due to the AMD news. Let me see, Nvidia looks pretty unclear, honestly. So we do have a pretty strong floor at 170, and we're at a pretty strong level right now at this 185. But the upside is a bit tricky just because we have, 187, 192, 195. We have a ton of stacked nodes. It's kind of difficult to establish a good target to the upside. Based on Vex, yeah, I would say our range is 170, 195. Honestly, the better bounce I would say is honestly off 180. That one has a bit more volume on Vex as well as the Gex. So honestly, I'd be more comfortable waiting for a drop down to 180 and taking that bounce. But I typically don't play many Mag 7 tickers, so that's just my thoughts.
What's that mean?
Max 7, like the Magnificent Seven, like Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google.
Oh, give me a second. Okay. MSTR. Okay, yeah, so I think a few people messaged about MSTR. Just due to the pretty large upside nodes. And it looks like what happened here is we're able to clear this level. Sorry, let me see my thing. Yeah, so we've had this level act as resistance a couple times. If we're able to now fight above it and hold, I do think MSTR does look pretty bullish to sort of break out there. Now, it's also just been on a run for the past week, so be cautious there. But if we do clear this 362 for now, and especially this 370, I think is pretty important to look at as a potential spot where it may reject or slow down, but I wouldn't fully bank on this 385. Just be aware of how this 370 and 367 pair of nodes are growing or shrinking, right? If we see those tail off and we get through them without much resistance, either tomorrow or Wednesday, then I see that 385 is more possible. But if we see these grow or we get some kind of rejection off of those, then these levels might end up increasing throughout the week, and then that 385 may sort of come and call into question. Um, okay, coin typically is quite in line with MSTR, but let me see. Actually, coin has a much larger range. Actually, coin is super interesting. I don't. Give me a second here. So I'd say coin. Probably one thing to watch out for is this 400 level. It has a lot of volume next week as well as this week. Has a bit of volume. So honestly, possibly if we get a bit more volume on GEX or VEX, trying a rejection of 400 could be okay. Otherwise, if we break above 400 and hold, this 420 does look more possible. But I probably wouldn't touch it until we do reach that 400 area. So yeah, I'll probably just put an alert there, and then once we reach it, if we reach it this week, um, I'll get the alert ping and then just assess the situation, however it may look when that happens. Yeah, Sebastian. Yeah, so Hood. So I think Hood today rejected right off of one. Did it have any nodes up here? 155. So I don't know what Hood looked like. Actually, I'm a bit curious. Let me see what Hood looked like last week. Um, Let me pull that up actually. So Hood on October, what was it, 3rd? Let's see, at 3:30 maybe. Okay, yeah, so Hood, can you guys see this very well? If I zoom in, possibly. So yeah, Hood last week, this is at 3:30 on Friday. So it did look like we were seeing 150 as ceiling. So sort of worked out here. But for the next, for this coming week, the ceiling was more on 155, and even some up here at 162, 165. So honestly, like I would have, for me to short Hood, I would have liked the 155 tap. I think we reached 154. So that's more of a personal preference. I know some people will try to get early entries with very small size and then scale in if we fully tap. I likely wouldn't have played Hood unless we tapped 155. But again, that's just more of a personal preference thing. So I do think catching the short right out of the gate on Hood was a bit difficult unless you are treating, unless you're taking these nodes with a pretty large range. So I tend to treat them with a range of about half a dollar. But if you're treating with the full range of a dollar, then 154 would have tapped or almost tapped, and you could have caught this short. But otherwise, I think my preference is always to wait for full node taps. So I would have waited for that full 155 tap, just because if you always start taking early entries, many times it will go tap the node. Sometimes it will even wick above the node. So you endure a lot more drawdown if you're doing these early entries every time. So again, this is a case where the early entry worked, but sort of just to protect myself, I typically wait for full full node taps, so I would have likely waited on hood for that 155. Um, but yeah, so that's my opinion there. Oh, yeah, I'll go back over Tesla. So yeah, Tesla I just looked at, but I think Tesla had said if this 450 level holds well, um, does look pretty strong up to 467. The only caution I had is we do kind of have a gatekeeper node at 460. So if you look on Vex, it has about 20,000 volume, and then if you look on Gex, we do have about 2,000 volume. So this 460 could be a bit of a gatekeeper for 467. So I'll just keep that in mind with either what strike price you're buying, if you're waiting until later in the week, etc. But there's a bit of, say, a bit of risk that it doesn't fully rip due to that. Okay, wait 1 second. Let me write down what people have put in the chat. Um, yeah, for anyone who joined a bit later, I'm just sort of going in order through Heatseeker, and then probably once I get tired, I'll just start going over the list that everyone has sent in, either through private messages or just in this chat right here. So, anyways, so hymns actually had a very nice map. Like it does have a very clear, distinct map with pretty good, pretty wide range and upside downside. What I will say is I think I had an alert at 52 and 50. Obviously that didn't tap today. We didn't, we got to 52.70. But I was sort of hoping for the full 52 tap in order to take position here. But we did sort of double bottom here. So we did, on the chart at least, we found pretty strong support here, and it does seem we're going to continue bouncing. These are, I think, also some fib levels from the extension in the past. So yeah, on the second golden pocket held pretty strong. Again, my personal preference is always to wait for the best risk reward. So in this case, I would have just set alerts at 52 or 50, but honestly, I would have preferred to get a 50 tap in order to take longs. Again, sometimes that just doesn't happen, so you sort of miss. I guess the way I view it is I miss the setup and just search for another one. On the inverse side, you can also set an alert here, you know, on the 58, 59 nodes. And if we do tap those before Friday, right? Like if we come tap these by Wednesday, let's say, there's probably a strong potential for rejection there. So, um, but overall, I think Hims is a pretty good example of a map I would like to see. Even though, clearly we haven't tapped either side of the range, but these kind of maps are the ones that I prefer to play because there's a pretty clear range, clear wide range, with a strong set of nodes at both sides that we can just set alerts at and just wait for either side to tap. Okay. So IonQ, I think this one's just been ripping pretty nonstop. I think all of Quantum actually has just been pumping for a while now. I think this one was more based on next week nodes that you played this, just due to the lack of volume this week. So I likely wouldn't play these just because, obviously we already ran like a good $6, $7 today. Also, now that we are approaching sort of that peak node for next week, there's a chance that we may just settle down around here. So I'd really want to see what it looks like into next week. Now, if we maintain this range next week where we have 80, 100, and it looks like some of these nodes are sort of shuffling upwards, but I would have to see how the downside looks. But if we continue to have this pretty strong dual node setup, I do think IonQ next week could be interesting. If we're able to claim 80, for example, and then bounce off of it for more upside. But with us being, 9 days out from this expiration, I typically just tend to wait and see, just reassess it next week. so there's less chance of time decay messing with the play. Okay. Okay, wait, this chart's a mess. Let me delete some of this. Yeah, sorry, I don't always clean up charts, so. Okay, but in any case, so we have pretty strong level 720, 740 as a target. So 740 is a pretty strong level from the past. I think this is a daily gap bottom. As well as 720 here is acting more of a gatekeeper. So again, on this 720, this is one of those cases you want to see a pretty strong claim of the level and then holding it as support. Over on VEX, we do look pretty bullish. Just if you stack these nodes together, and especially considering next week as well, seems to have more upside pull. So Meta does look pretty good to upside. Probably the crappy thing is the 705 entry was probably pretty nice today. Had pretty good volume on GEX and VEX, so that bounce was probably would have been the optimal entry. But obviously, we missed that. So if we're seeing, basically, you want to look for a new floor. And right now, I wouldn't say there's a clear one underpriced, so I would wait for a 720 claim. So if we claim that level, I would say that would establish a much stronger floor going into the rest of the week. Give me a second. I think someone's unmuted. Okay, should be better now. So yeah, Meta does look very bullish or pretty bullish. I guess one other thing here is it looks extremely bullish into next week and even the week after. Like we do have, I guess this is a good example of when nodes are stair stepping upwards, right? Where we're just gradually increasing not just the upside. I think when you look for these, you don't only want to see these peak nodes or these topside nodes going higher. You also want to see that our lower nodes are going higher, right? So some of these downside nodes are also increasing. So that just shows you this sort of the entire range is shifting upwards, if that makes sense. So that's typically just gives you a bit more confidence, whether it's extremely bullish or partially, that we're still going to be moving upwards as the week goes on. Yeah, so I think Meta, you might want to buy a bit more time on these contracts, but it does look pretty bullish for this month. CoreWeave had a ton of movement. Well, I think CoreWeave in general is just pretty volatile. I will say, since it bounced, when was this? Last Tuesday, has been consolidating for a bit here. It's probably a good thing. Just because, if we're getting a bit of consolidation here, then we can expect we will get some level of move fairly soon. I don't know if this week or next week. I guess we can. I might lean towards waiting and playing it next week just due to the lack of clear notes here. Let me see. Yeah, and honestly, it looks a bit biased even towards downside. I do, Corey, you've also had news with NVIDIA, right? I think so. I might give this one a bit more time. It seems what might have happened here is we got this pump and then just some of these nodes just haven't accumulated. But yeah, I would probably avoid playing it this week just due to the lack of data that we have. Meta has earnings the 22nd. Okay, yeah, so sorry, 1 second. Yeah, that's a good point actually. So I've forgotten we're gonna start getting some earnings in the upcoming weeks. What day is Meta earnings? Oh, why is this not? I thought typically earnings were listed on TradingView. Okay, that's annoying. Okay, but yeah, if Meta is reporting the week after or 2 weeks after, then that could give some hint into why some of these upside nodes are so extreme. But that sort of that just adds to the argument that I was saying, where when you look for these stair-stepping patterns, you do also want to be taking into account the lowest, sort of the low of the range, because that's sort of showing you the first potential ceiling, right? So of course, you can always think optimistically and aim for the peak node, but typically what happens is some ceiling will step in, or one of these other levels with pretty decent volume will end up rejecting price at some point. So you do, give me a second, let me mute someone else. You do want to be aware of not just the maximum upside, but also the potential ceilings that might restrict that from happening. Oh, thanks. Okay. Oh, okay. So that's how you get the earnings to show. Okay, yeah, so if it's the 29th, honestly, if it's for 29th, there's still not many nodes there, so actually that might be something to watch out for if you do play a bit longer dated on Meta. Just keep track of that week of the 31, because that's where all the nodes, whether upside or downside for earnings, are going to come and start stepping in. Yeah, and again, the general advice for earnings is either don't play it or only play with runners that are free. Polymarket. Oh, yeah, I do think Polymarket, which I think you need a crypto account to make an account there, has started offering the ability to bet on earnings just based on will they be ERS or revenue. Sorry. Yeah, will they be revenue estimates or sales? I don't remember what the other data point is, but like, and I haven't checked those odds, but I would assume there's pretty heavy VIG on them. So yeah, if you do want to do that, message in the chat, but you just want to make sure that your odds aren't just getting screwed over by VIG, which is, yeah, I'm not going to get into VIG. That's more of like a sports betting term, but it does equally apply on the, um, if you're betting on Polymarket or Kalshi or like any of those things, they usually will take a pretty heavy VIG chunk out of those yes or no options where it's saying, will they be yes or no? Yeah, right. So you do want to target high V, but high V is pretty difficult when it's just a yes or no question. So those tend to not. They usually don't give very much good value. That's just my experience. Okay. Yeah, so I'll keep going through a few more tickers, and then I've been writing down everything that everyone has sent, and then I'll just go through those afterwards. Yeah, it's kind of annoying that now I have to check daily and hourly, I guess, so I don't miss any earnings. Yeah, so Snowflake does have a pretty nice node at 250. As a ceiling, especially combined with next week, we do seem to be pointing downwards to 230, 220. So if we do manage to fully tap 250, I would like this. Yeah, obviously we haven't yet, but that's sort of an alert I would set there. I guess inversely, there's a chance 220 will fully tap, but that'd be quite the drop to bounce. So I would be leaning more towards seeing this continue to rise, hit 250, and then fall into end of week and into next week. Okay. Yeah, let me see. Lemonade, Take Two. I have those on the list. Uber. What else? Uber, Zoom, Unity. Yeah, I wrote those down. Galaxy I also have written down. I'll get to them, y'all. Don't worry. I'll just let me see. Here, I'll go until OKLO, just down the list, and then I'll get to the list that I've been writing down from everybody. Okay, so Starbucks, I don't know what they looked like last week, but if their peak node was also 85, it looks like we overshot and then rejected back down and broke through that 85. So after a move like that, you might want to look and see if 79 or 80 holds as support. But let me check the chart. Even this 81, there's a chance we'll hold. But yeah, I would say Starbucks, the large moves seem to have been playing the overshoot of King node and playing that rejection back down towards it. So I would say Starbucks probably a bit complicated to play there. Adobe. So a lot of tickers seem to have a pretty strong lack of nodes for this week currently. So those will probably grow throughout the week. But basically what's happening here is a lot of the OPEX nodes for next week are overshadowing this week's nodes. So again, you just visually it's a bit harder to analyze them, but you just want to be checking out what volumes we're seeing. So for example, Adobe, 365, 360, we have pretty strong levels, even down here at 332. As well as on, yeah, so GEX, the 360, 365 is matching 332, not as much, but we are seeing a bit of support here at 350. Let me see here. Yeah, I do think Adobe potentially we can see a bit more upside. But again, like I wouldn't say this map is too clear, so we do seem to be slightly biased upwards into next week, but we don't have like a very clean floor, as well as the upside is pretty murky, so this maybe is one I wouldn't look too hard at. Sorry, there's a question here. So yeah, app is still on the list, is already on the list, October. When analyzing the map, what time frame is best used to make decisions? It depends, right? So like if you're playing weeklies, typically you can look at 1 hour, 4 hour, or even daily. Now, if you're trying to take more of a big picture view and you're looking at the full map to play monthlies or even 2 months out, then you definitely want to be looking um, at daily chart at minimum. So yeah, I typically check 1 hour, but I do zoom out pretty far. So yeah, honestly, I probably should be checking 4 hour just so it looks a bit cleaner, but I still get the full picture. But I don't know. Yeah, I have the habit of just zooming out a bunch and checking it that way. Okay, so yeah, hopefully that answers that question, Apollo. Yeah, so for data, shoot, give me a second. Never mind. Okay, yeah, so for Datadog, at least currently, I would say 155 is looking like pretty good floor, especially with next week showing pretty good upside. If 155 doesn't hold, I guess the next floor isn't for a while down here at 147, I would say is maybe the next floor under. But yeah, at least right now, this 155 does look like it may be a pretty good previous resistance turn support. So I'll say this is pretty good level, probably a pretty good level to mark out. And just make sure those nodes, if we do come and tap this tomorrow or Wednesday, that these nodes stay strong. And if next week upside is still lit up, then it does look pretty good. If you're looking at bi-weekly contracts. Let me see. So net has sort of been in this same range for some time, for a few weeks. Let me see. 235. So we do have a very good node here at 235 to play rejection off of. I'm not sure we'll get there, just due to next week we'll likely start putting in some downside pull. So yeah, I mean, here I'll probably put an alert up here at 235, but I'm not sure if we'll get that. And now for where we can find a floor. Sorry, let me look here. I would say this 215 could be a decent floor, but honestly this 205, 207 is maybe a bit better just due to the stack of nodes. But honestly, overall with net, I wouldn't say I like too much here because yeah, I think the best play here would be 235 rejection back down just because we can target these nodes next week to the downside, but just not sure we'll actually get a full tap of 235. It seems a bit optimistic, especially with these levels being previous resistance. We may only reach around 230 if we pump. So I wouldn't be looking too hard there at net. Costco. Costco along with Netflix is usually one that does have pretty good movement. I will say for this week, looks pretty stunted. Like the VEX is showing pretty good upside, up to 930 or 940, 890 on the downside. The GEX is showing much more limited range. So I'd say like this 890 would be an absolute floor, but I'm not sure if I like much else here. This 905 perhaps could also be separate floor there based on the maps. Let me check. Well, I take that back. So we did double bottom quite well on Costco. Let me see if there's anything further back. I guess we're in a pretty large, this is probably second golden pocket maybe. Yeah, so we're still holding the second golden pocket for now. So actually, based on the chart, it does look like we're holding pretty strong. But if we're losing this 905 level, so this 905 does align with sort of, not the absolute floor, but this intermediary node. So we do have decent volume on VEX and GEX at this 905. Might not be a bit bad place to try for the bounce as well as this trend line break, but yeah, if we do crack under 905, it'd be pretty bearish on this one, and we have tested it. This is the third time, so yeah, I mean, trying to come in play the fourth bounce is pretty risky, so I wouldn't recommend that. Okay, let me write down a couple of these other ones. So Len, Netflix, Iran. Okay. Let me see. I think I said, yeah, I said I'd get to OKLO, and then I'd start going over a few of the ones that others had sent me. Okay, yeah, so Lulu, let me see here. So Lulu actually does have a pretty nice range, like where we do see 172.50 and 180 is still upside. Did this happen? Was this tap pre-market? Oh, okay, so Lulu actually tapped 172.5 sort of right out the open. So actually this play already kind of happened. I will say it has only been tapped once, so wouldn't be opposed to trying it again if we do manage to retrace and give another tap there. Yeah, because for now we do have pretty defined range. Upside does look favored this week and next week. So I would say Lulu actually looks quite good if we manage to get another retap down here of 172.50. Okay, Futu. Yeah, it looks like this 170 was sort of, we were acting here as minor resistance. We broke above today, retested, continued upward. It looks, yeah, probably the play was off 170 today. Probably for next week, just because this week I'm not seeing much on the upside, many clean upside targets. We probably will get a fair amount of resistance around 180. We rejected over there quite a few times last week, the past couple weeks. So yeah, I think Futu, perhaps if we tap 170 again would be nice, but it did sort of already tap that and run today, so may not be a bit of a chase at this point. Okay, Alibaba. Okay, so this Alibaba map is a mess. Yeah, I would have liked to say that 180 would be pretty good absolute floor, so this does line up well here with sort of these, what is this, the highs from 2 weeks ago perhaps. The only reason I'm a bit cautious on that is it is sort of the biggest floor we have now, but they do have some nodes stacked downside of it, especially on Vex. So if we come tap 180, yeah, I would like to see these nodes maybe grow a bit up to the upside, but otherwise, even if there's a bounce, it may not be very major, just due to there's a lot of downside pull going into next week, and even this week, honestly, at 175, it's a pretty strong downside pull on on Alibaba. Oh, wait 1 second. Yeah, I just noticed I had a question from on YouTube side. Okay. Is the audio okay for everyone that's on Discord? Or is it a bit soft?
You sound the
Okay.
same as usual.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that might be something on the OBS stream settings, so I'll look into that afterwards. Okay, so for ARM, well, okay, ARM is also a mess looking into next week. We have earnings. Oh no, that's much later. Okay, so yeah, let me see. So yeah, I'd say this 150 level does look like pretty good support. That would be sort of last week we did bounce off there a couple times too. So that 150 might be one level to mark out, but I guess I am seeing also a pretty good level around 144, 145. Yeah, honestly, to me, ARM, we just have quite a few levels going on here, so I'm not too sure. Would probably say it's not the best map that I've seen, so I would probably stay away. But yeah, I guess just going off the chart, it does seem like we flagged pretty well today. So yeah, perhaps if we find some support here off of one of these previous highs, so around 153, or if we even come down, tap 150 and hold that level. Yeah, it doesn't look terrible, but I would say the map map doesn't fully support uh, a great thesis. Okay, Reddit. Oh, whoops. I must have been going over this with someone. Okay, so Reddit, probably similar to hymns. Like, this is an example of like a very clear two-node setup with a wide range. So I guess these are typically ones that I usually like. The only thing I don't like about this one is this 200 level has been tested 3 times now. Was this during market hours? Yeah, so I was right off open. So it's been tested 3 times now. So yeah, I would just treat that 200 with a bit of caution. But yeah, like the bounce has worked very well. I think Thursday, yeah, so I had noticed it Thursday. I'm trying to remember. I had noticed that it tapped 200 Thursday. I think I got an alert. I either just was busy at the office and didn't play it, or maybe the map didn't look as clean last week. But yeah, as you can see, that 200 tap Thursday, it ran overnight almost $10. And then the same thing today. The tap today ran $9, $10. Actually, I think someone played this. I think I remember someone in the trading chat mentioning it. I just don't remember. I can't remember who it was, but someone definitely did have an alert down here at 200 and played that bounce today for at least 100%. I'm pretty sure I saw them post they made 100% profits there. So like the levels look very clear. I was just, I guess I'm a bit hesitant to play the fourth bounce just due to typically with each bounce those levels tend to weaken a bit. So, but it has been very strong for the 3 times that it has bounced. So there's still some potential there. I would probably size smaller than usual due to it being fourth bounce, uh, or just avoid it. Yeah, so UPST, this Vex map is a bit hard to read just due to the strength of this node, but we do have pretty good levels at 57 and 49. And the Gex, yeah, sort of agrees there on the 57, 49, 50. Yeah, even 50 a little bit. Now with next week pointing so strong to the downside, I'm not sure if I would play a bounce off of 49, or especially not 50, just due to 49 being so close. So if you do want to play a bounce, I would probably wait for the lower of the two, so 49, or even 46 has pretty good volume. But yeah, like the play I would much rather see here is if we pump up, tap this 57, and then reject down into next week, because we do have some pretty strong nodes at 52.5 and 47.5 going into next week. We do have, yeah, so I would much rather prefer to target puts into next week, but not sure if we'll get this upside node tap, which sort of I would view that as one of the nicer setups there. I think A firm had like this 3 node setup. Yeah, I had looked at this. So yeah, we do have sort of like 70, 75, and 80. Um, yeah, so I think with 75 holding, it looks like we tapped and bounced today. So that was probably one of the better plays there. But yeah, so 75 is held Friday, today, after claiming it on Thursday, claiming that level. So, and this 70 node has tailed off a bit. I think I had looked at these maps. This might have been one of the few things I did look at over the weekend, and I'm almost positive this Gex node shrank quite a bit. Vex, I can't remember, but point being is this 75 tap and bounce likely occurred today already. So if we get it again, you can try it. Or the other option would just be waiting for 80 to tap and trying to play the reversal off there, as long as we keep some of these downside nodes around. So right now for next week, we do have 65, 80, 72.5, 82.5. So if we do reach this 80, set an alert, and if the map is still showing strong levels at 80, but then also some downside, we could expect rejection there because this 80 level is very strong on both Gex and Vex. Okay, low. Okay, so okay, low is usually also quite hectic in its movement. Did I already pull this up? Okay. Let me see. So we do have pretty good double top here that is holding for now, 145. Um, did price set at 130? Okay. Let me see here. I guess okay, low is a bit tougher read, but I'd say 130 does look like a pretty good support. So that would be last week's resistance is now sort of flipped as support. I don't think we tapped that today to play off of that 130. Just sort of ripped out of the gate. But on the upside, you can also possibly look for this 149, 150-ish levels to hit. And even this 146 potentially could, oh, shoot. Sorry. This 146 potentially could reject, but I guess that's sort of the point I've made is if you do see two nodes somewhat close to each other and you do, with both of them, you're aiming for a rejection, I typically just wait for the most extreme case. And in that way, you just endure much less drawdown. It's just a much safer entry. So that's my personal preference. So I wouldn't really care if that 146 gets tapped. I'd probably just wait for that 149. And that looks like a bit of a stronger level and sort of like the max upside for the week. So I would wait for that to tap and then look at for a rejection there. Okay, yeah, now we can go through. I've been taking notes of the chat and then also throughout the day of whatever people said, and hopefully I cover everything. If not, just let me know, and I'll do it afterwards. But I have a good 15 to 20 to go through right now. Yeah, so first thing on Spotify, this what is this, like a 680 level has been really strong. We've gotten a ton of bounces off of it, which at the same time is a bit concerning because we've tapped it now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times technically. But we do have very good upside on it for 692 this week. Next week 700, even a bit higher, but sort of, if we're judging ceilings, I would say 692 looks like it could be ceiling for this week. Then next week it could pass. 700 is actually a bit small compared to this 735, 730 if you start combining some of these, but even the low of the range does look pretty optimistic on Spotify. So this one might be one you can look at tomorrow. If we open flat, so if there's no pump or drop overnight, Spotify does look pretty strong for upside. The only thing I'll say here again is, 680 isn't really a strong floor on the maps, but besides that, 680 has been tested a ton of times. So just be cautious there, I would warn. Okay, so yeah, that's Spotify. Yeah, don't worry, I have Lemonade on there as well. Okay, so we can go with Iran. Let me see here. Okay, so Iran is pointing super strong down. Now, all of these nodes to the downside, we did just get delivered from. So like this 52 was from Friday. Sorry, did Iran have news? because this is up $4 to $5 overnight, 2 days in a row. Not sure, but yeah, if this ticker is sitting on a ton of positive news, I would also be cautious just because some of these downside nodes may just be sort of older positions that they're now just trying to shift out of. So, seen a few cases where I think like Rigetti over the past 2 weeks is the same, where we've been extremely bullish on a ticker. And basically, what happens is some of these nodes just take a bit of time to start shifting upwards and rolling higher. So, yeah, I'm just a bit nervous to fully trust some of these downside nodes, but the 60 level, 60 level in theory would have been ceiling, but let's see how we open tomorrow. You know, if we pump past that, it looks like 64 might be ceiling based on next week's node. But yeah, this could be a case if we do pump past of playing the rejection back towards king node down here at 60. So I'd keep an eye on it, but I would expect throughout the week these nodes will all start sort of gradually moving upwards. Okay, wait, sorry. So BMNR. Yeah, I wrote down BMNR. We'll do that towards the end. Len also is I have it written down towards the end. I'll get to it. Yeah, AMD. I probably wouldn't play it. I usually just any ticker with some kind of news of this like severity, I typically just stay away from. Contracts get pretty inflated, and then also just it's a lot of people that get caught chasing the move, etc. So I just in general I stay away from these. It does look like 85. We have a good floor on both maps, so 185 might be what you can wait for. But otherwise, I wouldn't recommend killing yourself trying to play AMD that just had a very large move. Can be very, contracts are probably not in your favor on the IV side, and then they may just chop it around and kill anyone trying to chase that move. Yeah, so PayPal. Let me see here. Yeah, so PayPal is also up about $1.50 overnight. Yeah, so let me see here. Yeah, PayPal. I mean, the 71 level, if claimed, which, well, we're definitely claiming it now with this, if this overnight move holds. I was gonna say it would be a floor, but I just don't think if it'll be revisited. Honestly, now on PayPal, I'd be looking more at 73 or 75 to act as ceilings. So that's probably what I would be looking for into tomorrow. Is if we tap one of these levels, show a pretty good reaction back down to the downside, and playing the reverse off one of those back down towards 70 to 71. Now, if you want to play this for upside, I guess the 77.5 and this $80 node are pretty nice for next week. If possible, I'd probably also wait still for some form of pullback. So it looks like the 71 level is probably extremely strong based on the nodes as well as the chart. So perhaps waiting for that would be very good. Or even like this 70.6. That level has also been previous support, resistance about 3-4 times. So yeah, I would say if you're gonna look for upside into next week, I'd wait for one of these two levels to tap and bounce there. Okay. Okay, so that was PayPal. Okay, so intuitive. Yeah, intuitive. So this one had a pretty major. I think if you go out to daily, yeah, we did have a very nice trendline break. And we are holding this level around 430 very well, actually. So we respected that extremely cleanly last week. Um, broke trend line, we seem to be retesting. So probably what I'd be looking for here is just any form of support. So based on the chart, this wick actually looks very good. As previous resistance, and then as previous support, then resistance. Probably look at this for a bounce. So yeah, the heat map says 447, which is almost in line with what I just mentioned. And we are seeing a lot of nodes stacked toward the upside. So yeah, let me see. We have about 22, 27,000 towards downside, but on the upside we definitely have more. 29. Probably have a good like 40-ish thousand towards the upside. So I'd probably be looking for this 447.50 tap, and then play a bounce off of that. And that lines up with the trendline break and retest with the maps. So honestly, this one looks very, very clean. Oh, I have not been adding the ones I like to watch list, but okay. Yeah, I'll do my best to do that. So, okay. So yeah, intuitive looks quite good. Meta, I went over. Yeah, I definitely went over meta earlier. I think what I had said here is the better bounces off the 700 node. That happened today. So anything past that does feel a bit like a chase. The other thing I said is if we can claim the 720 level and hold, those look quite bullish. Due to the fact that the 720 level is sort of the next potential ceiling I see. So if we're able to break above that ceiling, claim it, I do think we can have further upside on meta. Yeah, Max, I think for intuitive, yeah, I just checked Gex and Vex. Honestly, intuitive, probably one of the better setups I've seen today. Just a lot of confluences there. So the one last thing I'll say that I think I haven't emphasized well enough is when you're trying to take any of these plays, if possible, you want to check the sector ETF. Basically, sector ETFs are always like I forget what they are. They're like the XLP and XLH and like just essentially a can I show that? Yeah, so essentially if you just type in X, almost all these tickers that start with X are except XOM, but a lot of these other ones like XLF, sorry, XYZ is block. So a lot of these XL tickers are sector ETFs. So you can sort of whatever ticker you have a nice setup for, it's not a bad idea to go check the sector ETF and see if it aligns with your thesis. Yeah, DIA2. Thanks, Dr. Eugene. Okay. Yeah, I think Tesla had already looked at too. I said basically, the sort of one of the absolute floors that I was seeing was down here at 442. We kind of bounced on that today, so I don't know. In my view, this Tesla plays already sort of taken off. Now we do have a bit of a floor here at 450, so if we can come back, retest 450, and you want to play that bounce, I would say that also has pretty good argument for that one. The only thing on Tesla is this 460 node is not too big right now, but I do think there's potential this might grow and sort of stunt the move all the way to 467, 470. So just be cautious with whenever you do enter if that 460 node is showing any larger than it is now. Okay, so Johnson and Johnson. Okay, so I know this is interesting. I know this ticker chopped for years. Yeah, so Johnson & Johnson had like one of the craziest consolidation periods I've seen. Just all of this basically. Um, so yeah, if you try to trade that, you probably got pretty cooked. Now that we have broken out though, has been moving quite well. And we seem to be at, oh, this is interesting. This map looks like it's end of week. Yeah, so it does look like we have reached upside. So upside was 190, 187. We essentially tapped 190 today. Um, so yeah, for rejection into next week, targeting 177, 175-ish. Those look very good actually. And even this rejection looks quite well. Like it looks like it formed a bit of a double top up here at 190, and then now we may see some downside on Johnson & Johnson. The only thing that might get in the way of that is this 150 node. So this consolidation block here, it looks like this 150 may act as a bit of resistance to the downside. We do have pretty, you know, sorry, was I saying 150? 185. But yeah, that 185 may have, yeah, may act as a floor going into next week. But next week definitely does point down a good $5 to $7. No, I can add Rigetti to the list. Okay, so Tesla, Johnson & Johnson. Okay, let me go over Galaxy. I know someone have been asking about that a few times. Oh, whoops. Yeah, so Galaxy has a huge node on downside. Pretty far away, honestly. So around here, 33.5, which was sort of like a previous. Actually, is Galaxy at all? Was Galaxy at all-time highs? Okay, so in that case, 33.5 was a previous all-time high. All-time high. Yeah, versus resistance, looks like we acted as support once, twice, so it has held it pretty well. So it does make sense that this would be a strong level, even on the heat maps. This 40 node sort of serves as a good rejection. It looks like we tapped it in pre-market. But yeah, if we continue pumping, this double top may be a pretty nice play. The only thing here. No, honestly, I would say the double top on Galaxy does look quite good. Yeah, the only thing that would be nice is if this 35 for next week gets a bit more volume than the 47. But no, honestly, like this 33.5 node is pretty massive for this week, especially with overnight seeming to have pumped it a bit more. This does look like a pretty good downside. The Gex one decreased from 10K to 5K, you're saying? I don't know what whoever starts with a J. Okay, so if it did decrease by 50% today, one, check that the VEX also decreased. But two, that does show that this may be a case where they're, getting out of that position down there at 33.5, and we may see a roll higher, but I guess just be checking this map. If you do take the entry, just be checking the map to make sure whatever volume we see is staying somewhat consistent, right? And we're not seeing, like, if we're seeing all this volume just be shifted up to 40 and just be piled on up here, that's pretty big argument against that thesis of a downside. But if we keep it similar to what we see now, and it stays consistent, then that does show that downside pressure is staying pretty on. Okay. So Lemonade. Lily, I wrote down Eli Lilly, J, whatever. I think because I'm streaming, it doesn't show me full usernames, which is pretty annoying. Okay, yeah, so Lemonade, yeah, best entry on Lemonade, it was 53. I think someone played this. Yeah, I think Fledge might have played this in OB, if I remember right, but yeah, this $53 was sort of the absolute floor, and it lined up pretty well between Gex and Vex. I don't remember when this tapped. I guess in the morning, but also in the afternoon it tapped very close, so around 33 or 53.30. So yeah, either entry there would have been quite nice. Now that we have bounced off of 53, I'm not sure it'll get revisited, but we could maybe have this 55 step in as an intermediate floor. Now the reason I typically don't play these is just because, you know, even if it is a retap of a node that is there, it's still a bit of a chase just due to the fact that we pumped, drop back down before. So I likely wouldn't chase Lemonade at this point, but it did have a very good entry point today. If you had, check maps, set the alert at 53, and just taking a look once it tapped there. So Lemonade had very good reaction there. Dr. Eugene. Okay, so it looks like Galaxy has stayed pretty consistent throughout the day in terms of volume, right? Because I think it was 5 point something when I just checked a little bit ago. Okay, so take two. Yeah, I think Fridays is probably the more important one to look at. Dr. Eugene. So yeah, take two. Is take two the GTA people? I think. Give me a second. Someone's not on mute. Okay, the GTA people. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's why they had some movement. Some time ago, they made some statement about GTA, if I remember right, but they do have, wow, they have huge upside node actually. 275. So yeah, this one, at least right now, we are getting a bit of consolidation here on take two. We're flagging. So I guess the only thing here is I don't really see a strong floor. So this, let me see. Based on the chart, I wouldn't mind this 255-ish level. Yeah, the only issue there is, Gex has decent volume on it. Actually, not even. This is pretty low volume. Yeah, so I'll say this one's a bit tough to say. Like, obviously there is very big upside. Timing that upside is a bit trickier just due to the fact that we don't have a good established floor. Now, if you size small and just let it run up, there's a chance you may be all right. But if they stall this another couple days and then have that big move happen on Thursday or Friday, there's a chance that your contracts will be quite red by then. So I would, if playing upside here, I would just make sure size smart, because it's only Monday night, right? Like we still have 4 full trading days, so just be aware that there's a lot of time there for your contracts to get chopped. Yeah, or there's a chance it happens tomorrow, a chance it happens Friday, but you always have to. You're gonna have to view these setups in what is the worst case scenario. Just make sure your entries align with, even if everything goes pretty poorly, so that you can still have some profits there. Okay. App. What is AppLovin? Yeah. Okay, so AppLovin also had big news. So I would also probably not recommend playing it. I think they had some probe about something that I don't remember what it was. Okay, yeah, so an SEC probe. So the issue there being similar to AMD, what I had said is contracts will be probably quite inflated. Also, since we did just drop so heavily, if you look at the heat map right now, a ton of these nodes are still sitting around where we were, you know, before that news dropped, right? So like our peak nodes for next week are 640 to 670, and that is basically where we are sitting at today. So I always say with these massive moves that do end up happening, typically I would recommend waiting because a lot of times these nodes will slowly start rolling down, right? So right now it looks like 600 has some decent volume, but I would think throughout the week we get a lot of this volume shifting lower. Um, yeah. Okay. Open. Give me a second. Jewel. I don't know. Can probably go pretty long today, honestly. Like with the setups I have from other people, probably another 20 or 30, but I can probably go longer. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. If you can give me stuff before 10, I can probably pull it up. And if you want to hop on mic and go over your stuff, Jewel, just let me know. Not sure if you can make it that quick though. 24 hour? No. Yeah, what you guys want me to do? Full on live stream? Um, yeah, no shot. We can do a subathon. Okay, so open. Did open get news? This is also pretty violent candle towards the end of the day today. Give me a second. I think someone was unmuted. No, never mind. Yeah. No, I definitely could. I've done it before, where I just go through and chart all tickers. It's just pretty big headache, but it's definitely possible. Okay, yeah. So I think what happened on open is they get a very strong candle. I don't know if that was news related or something else, but it looks like the $7.50 node that existed is likely getting rolled up higher. So Gex already has pretty strong floor here at $9, which does sort of line up here. Let me delete, sort of got lines everywhere, but yeah, this $9 level does line up pretty well. Sort of week and a half ago highs. So if those hold as support, I would say open does have pretty good upside. Now, the maps currently aren't showing much upside. I do think this may be a case where it did have a pretty sudden move. We have to give it a bit more time to settle for some of these nodes to roll up. So while on Gex, Gex tends to shift a lot more quickly throughout the day and throughout the week. We already established a floor at $9. Vex is slowly building it, but Vex tends to build these floors a lot slower than the Gex does. Okay, yeah, so that's again like I'm pretty biased against playing tickers right after they've had a very violent move, so I probably wouldn't play open. Same as APP, and same as AMD, right? That's just a personal preference. But in general, for those tickers, I would recommend Gex will show you where some of these levels will step in before Vex will because Vex just takes way longer for these nodes to shift, for volume to accumulate. So sometimes Gex can give you insights long before Vex does, if the move has been very violent and very sudden. Okay, Eli Lilly has also had a huge run lately. Let me see. What the? Is this true? It's a massive upside node. 900. Yeah, wow, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, but I guess it has had the momentum to justify that. So yeah, Eli Lilly is showing huge upside to 900. I'm trying to see if there's any kind of ceiling that might grow, but not really. Like honestly, this 870 perhaps has a bit of volume on Vex. But yeah, this is a pretty crazy move. So yeah, it looks like we bounced off 840 today. We retraced part of that move. We're sitting around 845, but on the chart, this doesn't look like a terrible place to play the bounce. But yeah, like the upside does look very on for this ticker. I don't know the price. I would think they might be quite expensive. Eli Lilly Gex node. Oh, the $900 node increased. Okay. Yeah, so like it does seem like the volume has been growing towards upside. Yeah, so like the only caution here is I don't see like a very strong floor, but I would say as long as we're able to hold maybe even like to this 830 level, but 840, 845 would be even nicer. Lily does look pretty good to continue upside. $3, $300. Okay, $300 for 900. Okay, so it is like fairly expensive due to the price of the ticker itself. So the upside does look very good though, based on the maps, the chart as well. Like this has just been showing extremely bullish momentum, but again, at some point these tickers have to slow down. So don't don't always bank on them continuing to run the whole time. Nvidia, I think I covered. I didn't like it much. I typically don't like many of the Max 7 tickers. Let me see if I remember what I said on Nvidia. I think I said like this 185 level is pretty important to hold. We do have some upside towards 190, 195 especially, but we do need that 185 to hold. Now the 180 floor looks a lot safer just due to the fact that 185 exists on Gex but not on Vex, or is a lot weaker. Whereas this 180 floor is very strong on both. So probably that 180 floor is what I would trust a bit more for a bounce on Nvidia. Okay, what else? So we have Uber. Give me a second. Let me go check the chat. Okay. Uber. So let me think here. I think Uber last week had a strong node at 96, perhaps. Maybe it's 95. I think it was 96 and it just wicked pretty hard through it. So it sort of hunted down towards 95. So yeah, like this entry on Thursday off of 96 would have been great. I mean, obviously it would have been a bit red throughout the day, but we did get a super strong move afterwards. So we're like, yeah, I know for a fact last Thursday offered probably the best entry on Uber. Now that we have ran and claimed this $100 level, this is a pretty strong level. So I'd say if we're able to hold here above, that does show some good signs going into next week for this 103 and 105 nodes. For this week, we do have a decent amount of volume here at 105. But yeah, I would just want to see, especially after this expansion we just had over the past few days of, $5, $6. Just want to see how long we're going to consolidate here around 100 or if we're just going to continue at once. So say the timing on this one's a bit difficult just because the big upside right now I see is more towards next week. But this week does have good volume. I would just say you just want to absolutely make sure this 100 node holds, or else we could see a lot of chop around there, or even a rejection if we cannot hold the 100 level. Okay. Wait, sorry, it's not in order. Wrong one. Zoom. I added GM to the list of Avila, so I'll go over it after. So let me see. Yeah, Zoom. Let me see. Yeah, this one was interesting. This one, like, we had a very clean double bottom, honestly, today. Down at the 80 level. I think the strong node was actually at 81 on Gex. Yeah, but either way, like off the chart, this 80 level, very nice double bottom. Sort of lines up with this wick from a long time ago. Now we need sort of that 80 and 81 level to hold pretty firmly for this upside to play out. So like for this week, this $90 node does have a bit of volume. But I will say the one, actually, yeah, even going into next week, the VEX is pointing also higher. But I will say this a 79, 80 nodes do have pretty decent volume. So yeah, you just want to be cautious if there's a bit of downside pull, but it does look pretty good for this bounce off of $80 that double bottom. Right now, I wouldn't say there's many ceilings here. Perhaps here at 84, but at least currently it doesn't look like there's anything major. So yeah, it looks decent for pretty good move upwards. Yeah, I would get more worried later into the week if some of these next week nodes start to take a bit more pull, but at least for now, this bounce off of 80 and 81 does look quite good. On Zoom, okay, now we have Unity. So Unity as well, let me delete these lines. Oh, is there no way I can? Alright, whatever. There's gotta be some way I can delete those. I'll figure it out later. Okay, so yeah, Unity has very big upside nodes into next week. What I'm trying to find is pretty good base, where we could base, sort of hold as a floor to take that play. So let me see here. So Unity sort of have a trend line here that's formed. It looks like this wick here. it's probably too far back. So actually, let's just put it here. So yeah, it looks like for this wick from early September, came down. We wicked below it at around 37. Reacted fairly positively off of it. I will say we do want to, yeah, make sure we probably hold that level. But then in that case, it does look pretty good for next week upside. And again, this is one of those cases where obviously 43 is king node. If you are able to price wise, I would probably just get something a lot closer to the money, 39, 39.5, 40, just because if this 40 starts to act as a gatekeeper or as a ceiling, yeah, you'll be thanking yourself for taking much closer to the strike, closer to the money strikes, because you will be less impacted as those contracts play out. Okay, that's Unity. I think someone had asked for Lennar Homes. Or not Lennar Homes, sorry, Lennar Corporation. One second. Okay, yeah, so this one also being another ticker with, actually, I don't know. Sorry, I'm trying to figure it out. Okay, sorry, had to mute someone. Yeah, Leonard definitely has very strong upside. For a week out, 2 weeks out, like this week, next week, and a month out for some reason. It's interesting. For end of October, I don't know why that may be the case, but yeah, the only thing here is we do want to find a pretty good floor. So I will say this one, 26-ish, is not a bad area. It's not a great area actually. Let me see if there's somewhere else. Actually, yeah, so we have, yeah, so we've had a couple bounces off this week back here, and then as well a couple weeks ago held this level of support or as resistance, once as support. So if we're able to hold this again, this does look pretty bullish up to 135, 130 something, or even probably target 130 and a half, 131, just these previous swing high. Then if we clear that, then obviously you can hold some runners for 135. But the only thing I'll say here is there's not a strong floor on the maps. So yeah, if you're gonna play this one, make sure you're finding a very good floor. You're finding a good floor on the chart because the maps, at least currently, they support upside, but when they don't have a strong floor, sometimes it's hard to assess when you should enter a trade in order to take advantage and not get when you should enter a trade so you don't get chopped pretty heavily. Okay. Netflix. Okay. Wait. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, so Netflix has pretty strong downside, actually. Now I will say here, Netflix, the GEX and VEX don't align too well. So the GEX is pointing all the way down towards even 1,100, a bit lower. The VEX is, I mean. The GEX has a bit of volume down there, but really has a bit much higher volume. The only reason that concerns me a little is if any of these GEX levels are actually quite strong, they'll act as support, sort of hold price up. Um, but yeah, I would say the bias is likely definitely down here on Netflix. And even if you look at the charts, I think this is more macro. But yeah, even if you look at the chart, we do have a bit of a wedge where we broke under. Um, yeah, we broke under, retested, and now we seem to be dropping a bit more. But like the bullish and bearish cases are actually both very viable because either of these candles where we dropped and then retested could also be viewed as a pretty strong hammer candle where we're sweeping this liquidity here at 11:45. So yeah, actually I'm finding it a bit hard based off the chart to find a bias on Netflix. Um, yeah, I've sort of just convinced myself both ways now I think about it. But yeah, overall I would say if we're not able to hold above this 160, I would probably be looking for more downside. But again, this 11:45 level, which is sort of this where we've tapped the past 3 days, is pretty critical as well. So if we're not able to hold that, I do think we can see some of this further downside that we're seeing on VEX, all the way down to 1100, 1110. But right now, we do sort of have this range where if we stay inside, I probably wouldn't play it very often. But if we're able to get back under 160, I'd be fine targeting 11:45, and then since we have tapped that a few times already, there's a possibility we crack there and then just have pretty good flush on Netflix. Um, okay, give me a second here. Okay, so someone had asked for BA. I don't know what this company's called. BMNR. So I think they just moved pretty in line with Bitcoin, so they have been very bullish for the past few weeks. Looks like we have a good support at 61, so sort of these previous highs holding. As long as we do hold at 61, I don't really trust this 51 or 52 nodes to come true. If we are able to hold the 60 or 61 with pretty good strength. Now, if we're able to fight under those, then I would be more open to targeting this low. But right now, it does look very bullish. So also, I would be looking if we clear these highs from a couple weeks ago. This one does look like it could keep going another few dollars. Now, the other thing I'll say here is this might be a case of where we can look for a peak node overshoot and play the rejection back down. But yeah, if you're thinking about that, I might recommend maybe talk with Glitch on that one. He has a bit more experience playing these peak node overshoots. In general, when I see these node overshoots, I stay away. So maybe better idea if contact Glitch, get his thoughts. But Bitcoin and Quantum, some of these stocks, like some of these sectors have had extreme strength lately, so I would be cautious to go around trying to short all of them. Yeah, in general, yes, Josh. I don't have a ton of experience on them, so I don't want to misspeak or give incorrect advice there. But yeah, many times node overshoots do give very, very good plays. Yeah, I don't want to speak to something that I'm not super knowledgeable on. But yeah, I can look into them more just so for the future I'm able to give a bit better analysis on them. Okay, so TSM, this is also semis. So we did have very strong movement. Obviously, this might have just moved with AMD. Seems to have flagged today. So actually it flagged pretty well here. Um, we are seeing more downside than upside. But at the same time, I'm not seeing a pretty clear ceiling here. So, I mean, we do have a ceiling up here at 320, 325, and a floor at 290. But at least where we're currently flagging, it's hard to say if we'll continue upwards or downwards. If we do manage to come and tap this 290 level, I do like that level a lot. It's like a sort of a support resistance flip. But even this 295 doesn't look bad, where we rejected downwards twice. So if we get that 295 to flip a support, but I think this 290 level looks better if you're assessing both the charts and the heat maps. So I think the 290, if you're looking for a pullback to go long, say 290. If you're looking to short due to some of these nodes for next week, say that is a bit trickier because there's not a very clear ceiling at this moment. Like the nicer ceiling I'm seeing is quite it's quite far out, honestly, for this week. But yeah, I would keep an eye. You can also just keep an eye at like the 307.50 in case of a double top. But overall, I'd say we seem to be pretty distant from some of the major nodes on this sticker, so I would likely just be waiting for one of those to tap and then reassessing once we get there. Okay, Elf looks super weird into next week. For this week, honestly, the range looks quite tight. So we're only looking from 136 to 139. And even into next week, it's $5 range. So honestly, I'd be a bit concerned on this one. So there's potential for like a 136 bounce, but again, with these other nodes being stacked so close, it's kind of just limiting your upside and showing, even if we drop, for example, and hit 136 and bounce up, we're really only looking at $2 or $3 of upside, so nothing, probably not enough, not a wide enough range, at least for me personally. Okay, so circle. So circle has a pretty strong node. Let me see at 150. But this downside and upside looks fairly even split, so I guess there's a slight bias towards downside for next week. But but yeah, I'm not too sure. Like looking at it this week, I could see maybe a 150 rejection, but there's really no targets towards downside, so it may just have to be playing a scalp on that rejection there. But if you look at the chart, we have been consolidating a few days, so if this continues to consolidate, we're just really not going to see much going on with it this week. Probably just wait until next week, just because we do have a lot more clearly defined nodes for next week. So if you wait until then, we can really make sure we're setting alerts to some of these stronger levels. And yeah, we're just having more options of where to play upside or downside bounces for circle. Okay, Rigetti. So same as IonQ. I forgot what the other example was, but when some of these stocks have had such bullish movements, yeah, I would highly recommend. Honestly, I would recommend you just wait, but Rigetti does look, because I know many people last week, not many, but a few people last week tried to short Rigetti off of ceiling nodes, and just the strength it carried as it ran up was extremely strong, and it was just sort of smashing through all ceiling levels. So yeah, when you see that kind of strength in the ticker, it just puts a bit more risk, on trying to short it again the next week. That being said, we do have pretty good downside. It's just a bit hard. Let me see to find the ceiling here. This is 41 maybe could have been ceiling, but honestly we're already at 42, almost 42.5. So Rigetti I'd probably not take, just out of I'm not able to clearly find like a very nice upside ceiling node. So I'll probably just let it continue as it is. Yeah, and just maybe wait for, if we do reject, wait for a bounce off 37 and just wait for one of these levels to convert to a floor and play that bounce. Okay, give me a second here. MP. Okay, there's only a few more, 4 more tickers that people had asked to look at. Eli Lilly. Did I already go over this? Yeah, I already went over Eli Lilly. Sorry. GM I haven't gone over. So yeah, so General Motors. I don't know what this line is from. Actually, I don't know what a few. Let me get rid of these. Okay. Yeah, so General Motors at a pretty good floor, right? So we're at this 58. Oh, I take that back. So 59 and 60 were pretty good floors. On Gex and Vex. Seeing as we didn't really bounce there, this 58 could be sort of our last resort floor. But yeah, even if we hold 58, I wouldn't be too comfortable targeting upside unless we're able to reclaim 60, just due to the fact that these are 3 stacked nodes. So sometimes it can be hard to reverse out one side and make it sort of, break through all 3 for the upside. Also, the reason I hesitate is that next week has some pretty large nodes just around where we're sitting. So there may be a chance that we do hover around this area a bit longer than we would like. Yeah, that's probably my thoughts there on General Motors. Okay, LAC. What? Did someone ask for LAC? Okay, so this isn't on heat map. What lithium? What is this? A battery company? I would imagine. Um, yeah, so I would imagine they got some big news last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever. It's just sort of been, yeah, I guess this one's been just pumping, flagging, breakout again, sort of just repeating this pattern. Yeah, so this is pretty textbook. Honestly, this looks more like a long time ago, not a long time ago, but it does look very similar to movement from a few years ago when we were pretty consistently grinding up. So many stocks would just sort of leg up, consolidate very cleanly, leg up again. So honestly, this LAC does look pretty good to leg up again at some point. So yeah, maybe off at this $8 level. If we tap there, honestly, I'd probably look for upside there because yeah, it has followed very cleanly. We're flagging right now. If maybe an extra day of flagging would be nice. You know, some of these flags from the past were at least 2 or 3 days, and then we get another expansion like upwards. Okay, MP. I don't know what this is. Just a materials company. Yeah, so MP does have a very nice map actually. So these are some of the easiest maps to play, in my opinion, where right now we're sitting in the middle of the range. You basically you come in here at 77, you add an alert, and at 67, you add an alert. And then you really don't have to think about it past this because you just wait. And once you do get that notification of one of these alerts getting triggered, double check the map, but typically you just end up playing the range saying, okay, if we tap upside, I'll play the rejection to downside. And if we tap the downside, I'll play the rejection upwards. The only thing I'd want to check on MP is if the 70 node keeps growing. It's possible the floor shifts from 67 to 70. But for now, I would just mark out sort of like the absolute top bottom and use those to, set your alerts and drive your thesis going forward. So it's GM, LAC, MP. What else? Amazon, I don't believe I looked at. Give me a second here. Okay, it looks like today Amazon wicked this double bottom from last week. So tap that level, bounce super strongly. So the reactions off this 217, 216 have been extremely strong. Yeah, we do have some upside towards 227. Let's say that 225 node being in the way. It's a bit worrying just because that is, we have that as previous resistance a couple times. So I don't know if I target 227 as absolute upside for Amazon, but actually, yeah, I don't know if I'd play Amazon at all. Like, I do think the better bounce was off of this sweep of these levels. Whether they're grabbing liquidity or just stop hunting, whatever it may be, that sweep and the reaction off of it, especially, were super strong. Like this candle does have a very strong bottom wick, so that was likely the play on Amazon. But if we are able to hold this 220, this 217 to 220, we can probably hold there and then push upwards towards at least 224.5 or around these previous swing highs. Okay, and then Carvana. Let me see. Carvana also has pretty good. What is going on here? Okay, Carvana has huge upside for next week. I was gonna say for this week is Carvana has a pretty good note at 350. Sort of lines up down here with this wick. And we also have, yeah, pretty decent note at 360. So we'd be looking at around here. So yeah, 350 obviously being the safer play, but 360 if it does gain some volume could be a potential bounce spot. Now, if you're planning to do that, I would look to next week, not this week, just for the fact that this week 375 is probably upside ceiling. Whereas next week, especially on VEX, we are seeing some pretty large upside notes, so you can, yeah, I don't know, maybe play this targeting 395, 400, but it does look a bit safer to wait. Try next week's upside. Just play the bounce off of either 360 or 350, honestly. 350 would be way best, just because it's a super strong node on both, but 360, I could see the argument for 360 if those nodes grow a little further. Okay. So let me see here. Amazon. Carvana. Okay, let me check the chats to see if anyone is asking for anything else. Otherwise, I think I went over everyone wanted me to. But let me also message Jewel and see if he's able to do something right now. Because I know sometimes he likes to hop on. Jewel. Yeah, let me message him real quick. Okay, let me go back. SPX. I mean, yeah, I can take a look. SPX, I would say definitely John is a lot more skilled with this, but yeah, let's see here. So let me see. We have 6, 7, so 2 days out on 6, 750, pretty large node. Tomorrow looks pretty split. It looks like over the next few days, this 6725 node is going to be pretty big importance. Either as a pivot level, resistance, support, whatever it may be, but that 6725 has pretty good volume. 6700 is still holding good volume. Let me see, and even this 6675. So yeah, I think maybe going into tomorrow, I'd probably mark out 6725, but then yeah, I think at least for me, SPX charting it out night before is a bit. It helps, but I usually don't do it just because you can usually get more information just from looking at all three maps combined, sort of reading those side by side, right? So if we're on ES right now, but definitely we're still holding very bullish index market sentiment. So I haven't seen anything yet that looks very bearish at all. Like we've held these previous all-time highs pretty well, stayed above on ES. So I think for now we can probably keep looking for a bit either more upside or just pretty flat. So yeah, we're not really seeing much downside until end of week. Actually, I'm curious. This is really big downside on end of week. Yeah, I'm not too sure, honestly, with the indexes. I'm not getting much of a read there, but yeah, uh, I don't think I've ever swung index contracts, so typically just look at them intraday. Uh, okay, let me see what Jewel replied. Okay, so yeah, Jewel's not gonna. I guess he'll send into the chats, but he probably won't hop on live today. So Wednesday probably I can help him out with that. Otherwise, is there any other questions or tickers anyone wants me to go over? Oh, I missed TR. Yeah, I did very early on, but here, let me can show you quickly. Let me see here. So yeah, I think big thing I said with MSTR is we just need to make sure we claim some of these levels. So this 362, 367, 370. If we're not able to fight above them and use them as support, this 385 will be pretty difficult or almost impossible to get to. But so yeah, I would be watching for those levels. If we can claim them, you know, fight over them, hold them as support, I do think this further upside is possible. If we start to reject that 370 and we're just having a tough time there until later in the week, um, yeah, it just may be a bit risky to buy in tomorrow. So I'd probably wait till we claim one of these levels, hold it as support. Um, yeah, and just see some other signs like that before I would try upside on MicroStrategy. Okay. Yeah, Home Depot. Home Depot. Oh shoot. Keep doing this. Sorry. Yeah, so Home Depot. Let me look at the chart. Okay, so Home Depot has been in pretty strong sell-off for a while, but say if we're looking at these levels here, um, I'd say it's potentially basing, trying to find some support here. On the maps though, I'd say this 385 is maybe the best support that I've seen. So, and did we tap that today? Yeah, we basically tapped that today. We're within $1, but yeah, possibly if we retap that 385, looks pretty strong. The upside, coming up to 400 into next week, even this week, but next week to be safe, does look pretty good. I don't know. Again, I don't know the pricing on these, but yeah, if you're truly waiting for this 35, play the bounce. I think going towards 400 would not should be able to get some pretty good profits. So I think Home Depot has been in a downtrend, but we can start trying to see if we can catch that reversal when it does happen. Um, but yeah, if that 385 today was the entry and it doesn't revisit, then it's a bit more complicated. Uh, okay, hopefully that helps. Death Tail. Any interesting positions I'm about to enter? Uh, no. So actually, today I didn't do anything at all. I was pretty busy at work. From what I found today, I think Intuitive looks pretty good. Um, wait. Sorry, let me go one by one. So Intuitive, I think I liked just from higher time frame. It's a trend line break and retest. We're holding this 445 level. It's quite strong on the chart. So it was previous support, resistance a couple times, and then now hopefully we use it again as support, and then as well as this trendline retest. And the other thing on ISRG is looking into VEX. We are pretty skewed towards upside into next week. Again, I don't 550 is crazy, like super optimistic, but even some of these lower nodes at 480, 500, 485, so we do have a bit of a bias towards upside into next week and even this week at 470. It is outweighing that lower node at 430. And yeah, this 447.5 is pretty good. Has somewhat volume on VEX. So yeah, ISRG I think is not bad, based mostly on the chart actually. I just like this trendline break and retest is pretty clear. Galaxy, someone had mentioned this. Yeah, so Galaxy has like a super distinct downside node. And we're currently sitting around $40, which is sort of the only upside node with any significance. So this one as well looks pretty decent for a double top, then rejection back down. Yeah, let me look over the list. There were a few other ones I liked. I just can't remember which ones they were. Probably have to go back. I'll go back through the ones I went through today, Alejandro, and then I'll probably start posting some either on Twitter or to Swing Ideas. So the Swing Ideas channel within this Discord. So I'll try to do a bit better of trying to post some of my ideas to a couple of different places so you guys can see sort of like a partial watch list, I guess. But I'll be honest, I haven't scanned all heat maps and built watch lists very disciplined lately just due to time. But yeah, I'll try to find a bit of time to do that. Dr. Eugene MP. Oh, you're saying MP has a good setup? Yeah, I do think MP had a very good one, if I remember right. Yeah, so MP had like a super clean map. We're a bit far away from either of these nodes, but yeah, that's true. MP had an extremely good map. How do I add this? Yeah, so MP probably is another one I should add there. I think even HIMS had a very good map. I think those are a bit. Yeah, ISRG and Galaxy are very close. They're already at basically one side of their ranges. MP and HIMS, I'd say they're very good maps, but you probably have to set alerts and just wait until later in the week because at least currently they're both a bit far from where the entry would be. Yeah, okay. Any other questions, anyone? Whether it's charting or just in general? Yeah, no problem. Hopefully it was of help to some of you. How to tell if app is... Oh. Yeah, so I think I had already mentioned this. I'll just reiterate it. Trying to catch the knife on app is completely different than trying to catch the knife on Home Depot, right? So like Home Depot has had a pretty steady sell-off over the past couple weeks, but none of these days are outside of reasons, right? So like, we're having $10 days, $5 red days, so this is like a reasonable push downwards. So in these cases, we can usually trust the heat map is, been keeping up with the move and it's generally quite accurate if we're seeing a bounce level. App with the news that just dropped and like such an aggressive candle, basically what happens is the heat map still takes some time for a lot of these positions to shift and to sort of migrate lower, right? So I generally never recommend playing a ticker after such an expansion or such an aggressive move, whether it's app, AMD, because a lot of times these nodes on heat map will be left straggling, right? So there's still a lot of upside nodes on app that just aren't true, right? So if we look at VEX, almost all these nodes are about $70 to $80 away from where we currently are on price, and that's due to the aggressive drop that happened today. So typically with these kind of moves, I just don't even bother touching those tickers due to the maps being a bit less accurate, and then as well as a lot of the contracts tend to have very high IV values, so they just tend to be more expensive. So I always stay away from these. So I wouldn't try to. I wouldn't stress too hard October, trying to find the correct bounce spot on app. But yeah, I guess if we're looking at the map, yeah, I guess there's his all-time highs from a while ago at around 520. And yeah, like Dr. Eugene mentioned, there's a daily gap right here. So either of those could be a good spot for us to maybe target before bouncing. But yeah, in general, yeah, I would just stay on the cautious side is my recommendation, especially after something like an SEC probe, because yeah, generally with these things they probe, but we have no way of knowing the full details. So then sometimes this stuff comes out positive, or sometimes it comes out completely negative. So it's just pretty hard to predict those kind of moves. Okay. Anything else from anyone? If not, I'll probably cut it here, and yeah, I'll cut the stream, and it's gonna be on YouTube. I think like you should be able to watch it right now, even. So in case you joined late and missed anything, you can just replay whatever parts you missed. All right then. Thanks everyone, whoever joined, and thanks everyone who was sending me tickers to look at before or even right now. So appreciate. Hopefully it was of it helped y'all out. And again, I'll do another one on Wednesday. Yeah, no problem, everyone. Thanks for joining. And yeah, good luck tomorrow and the rest of the week. Okay.